I can say is that it's not an issue of black women and black men. It's just women and men. That's all, and there's nothing else to it.
So you're saying then, when these black girls are saying, okay, let me put this way: all of these black players, football players,
yeah,
a lot of them go out with white girls. Do you think that's because of their environment, or they choose to do that?
I think it's probably a mixture. It's a mixture of both. It's environment as well as because their choice, but it's also environment, and it's also probably partly availability as well.
Right.
So if there aren't any, and it's probably their upbringing and the way they've been brought up and the environment they're in. It is partly environment, because if you consider, beg your pardon, I'm spitting there. If you consider a black footballer in, say, Jamaica, what do you think he would be doing? Wouldn't necessarily be going out with a white woman. It would be
black. Yeah. So it's environment, you're saying. Do you think that some of them make a choice to actually date these girls?
Yeah,
like, because
some of them do.
There's some of them I've never, you know what it is? If I can see you sometimes one time with a black girl, I can say, okay, yeah, but you see them with these blonde dolly girls and you're thinking, can't you just go out with a black girl for once? I think this is what black women are complaining about. What's your feeling on that?
Well, I mean, again, they've got a choice. It's their choice, and it's up to them what they want to do. And there's image to go with that as well. And I'm sure if they find a glamorous black woman, and because that's what these footballers want, or these celebrities,
yeah,
they will do it. Now, if we then move across it to the Atlantic, to North America, what do you find there? Far more black celebrities will actually have the same race relationship with somebody else. So it'd be
black celebrity. Are you saying it's different in the States?
Yeah, I think it is. It's probably not as prevalent as here, because there's more kind of, I suppose, more of an interracial mix anyway in this country.
Right.
Far more than there is in the States.
Right.
Because I mean, the States has an history of segregation anyway.
That's right.
Right. Whereas here, there's far more integration, and therefore you'll find more interracial relationships anyway.
Well, personally, I think the black man gets a raw deal, you know what I mean? Like everyone's quick to jump on his back, so I mean, you need to give him a chance. You get me? It's like, basically, everyone's the same, whether you're black, you're white, whatever, things happen in relationships, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't think, personally, being a black male, I don't think a black man is out to two-time, whatever. If you treat him right, he's gonna behave.
But do you think that's what the problem is? Like, black girls don't really treat their man right? Because you hear that all the time. Like, it's always been an ongoing issue. Do you think that's what the problem is?
That's the main problem there. Black women don't treat their men right. It's either like they expect a lot and don't want to give much.
Okay. That's always, to be honest, most guys I've interviewed, that's always what they've been saying. Materialistic. But a lot of black girls say to me, yeah, but you know, white girls are materialistic too. So
yeah, but I mean, see, like, I think the white man gives them an easy, he lets them get away with a lot.
Okay.
That's what I mean. So they're getting accustomed to that nowadays, so that's what they want now. It's like, but the white man lets them get away with a lot. Whereas, you know, it's hard being a black man in this country. That's what I mean.
Definitely.
Because, like, I mean, you're fighting from all sides, and if your woman ain't behind you as well, then
you're done. You're down.
I mean, if you're not happy outside, you need to be happy at home.
That's okay. How do you see the current events between black females and black males?
Okay. Currently, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding, and that's kind of based on all these perpetuations by society that's telling us how we should be conducting our relationships between each other. When it comes down to it, I think simplicity is communication, or the communication skills or development of, has kind of been lost in the whole ether of what society says that we need to be in relationships. My understanding is, through all that confusion now, the men have a certain kind of preconception of how they're supposed to be when they're approaching a woman, and that's like whatever's been put to us document-wise or in the movies or in the media. And the women themselves now have kind of armed themselves with a defense mechanism to say, you know, we are worth more than that, and we're not going to stand up for a man calling us what these movies and music videos say that we are. So with that, there's a certain set of stigmas before you can even speak to a person, and prerequisites based on, let's put it this way, a lot of the men that we have in society aren't truly a representation of what a real man is supposed to be, because
Correct.
they haven't had the correct references. So
What do you mean by that?
as in, okay, father to son relationships, a lot of the times a lot of information is lost in translation because the father is busy trying to be the breadwinner, trying to provide, that he hasn't kind of generated enough time to sit down with a young man and teach him how to be a man or develop into a man. So this young man grows up with his own ideas based upon trying to correct either the mistakes his father's made or trying to do things differently to what his father done, and they may have the whole wrong points of references. So they go into relationships now with these preconceptions, boys in men's body, so they haven't actually developed or matured.
So in your because you seems like you're defending the woman. You're saying that we need to change our behaviour so the woman will respond better. Is that what you're trying to say?
In a roundabout way, because I feel that because there's a lack of knowledge with men, especially in how to speak to women, how to respect to women, that level of education needs to be given, because a lot of the times we're told, yeah, just be a man and man up, and that be a man has no reference.
We don't know what man is.
That's it, because in many people's households, if you ask them to kind of count out 5 real men, or men that they look at as a real man's man, they would struggle, because society has told us now we can become feminized, we can use all the products or more than what the women use today, and that's the definition of manhood. Instead of saying have principles, be able to read, indoctrinate yourself about your history, indoctrinate yourself about your culture, be strong about your religion, know who's your God, you know what I mean? Understand where you are in the midst of
So
that.
you're saying family values has a lot to play with, and with
It
this.
definitely does. I mean, I think your social structure, where you grew up, the references you had, even culturally, there's a lot of attributes that go into making you who you are. So from a society point of view, the black man is almost a criminal by nature.
Right.
You see what I mean? His prerequisites are crime, gangster relationship, drugs, smoke, all the negative connotations of what a black man is supposed to be, or a man is supposed to be. So with all those stigmas, the women are beginning to see us just like society. They're looking at us.
And do you
like
think that's why we
criminals.
get that kind of treatment from them? Like,
because-
even like decent brothers like yourself. I know sometimes you'll get black girls and they do certain things, and you try to understand why they're doing these things.
Right, well,
and a lot of them won't talk about them.
they're in itself as well. That's a whole new kind of world, because the black woman per se, there's a lot of confused references as well, because a lot of black women speak out about being a strong black woman.
That's right.
And a lot of the times they don't know it's strong in what. You know what I mean? Strong in the way I look, strong in the way I appear, strong in my views. And that in itself can create a stigma, because you may have some strong views, but they may not be the right views. You know what I mean? They might have a poor reference. So I'm saying, in the midst of this all, why I've gone back to my first point, saying, that misunderstanding and all of those stigmas need to be kind of diffused by having open conversation and trying to understand what the other person is all about. You see what I mean? And when we bring it back to those basics where we're talking openly to say, all right, as a black man, these are the things I go through, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And the same way it should be reciprocated by the women saying, well, as a black woman, this is what I go through as well, And these are the things I like about women.
So you're saying we're not communicating?
Exactly, because if we found out or took time enough to find out, well, what is it I would like a man to do for me as a woman, then we're armed with information that we can go forward. So when we do say hello to that woman, we're not met with that kind of hostility or that kind of like, well, what does he want kind of thing, We're met with a more open and warm kind of, well, let's talk.
Which some girls do. I mean, not all black girls do that, but a lot of them do, but a lot of girls respond to you very good. Jumping off that subject, what do you think about the rising of black females dating white males, and vice versa?
In it, I personally I had bigger issues with it before than I do now, only because coming from a Caribbean background where you never had so much of the interracial connections and so on and so forth, I was stigmatized by it. However, now I understand we're in a multicultural society, and who you meet and develop relationships for and start to care for is all down to the amount of exposure you have to that kind of culture or that circle of people. So where you find love, I can't really speak against it. But if two people are going to look after each other, care for each other, have that mutual understanding, respect, more power to their elbow.
Don't you think that the more, because statistically we're the most people that date outside our race? I mean, you don't get the Jews doing it, you don't get the Indians doing it, very rarely. You don't get the Chinese doing it, certainly not. And you don't get the Greeks doing it, so why are we so quick to integrate?
All the races that you spoke about, they're not doing it openly. They may still be doing it.
Right.
Same reasons being, where they're developing relationships and friendships, taking it to the next level. But still, it's one of those things now, where do we draw the line? How do we police that? How do we change the mindsets? You can't tell a person don't fall for that person. They're naturally going to do that. You know what I mean?
Course.
So it's one of those things that culturally or religiously or whatever it is, if you make a stand to say don't date out your race, because certain races they'll go to the extreme of, killing that particular person for dating outside their race.
You've heard that before, right?
It's quite extreme, but that's how they view it. They view it as a scar against their particular culture. However, because the Caribbeans have been integrating with English and Caucasian since coming to the UK, it's the one of the oldest things that's gone on in our culture.
But is it right?
Is it right? Now, that in itself is really deep. Is it right? It's acceptable.
Okay.
It's acceptable. Right will be kind of casting a really strong judgment on people who do it. We've had people we have members of our family who's interacted or gone interracial relationship.
Of course.
And some of the sweetest, soundest relationships there are. So I wouldn't say it's wrong from my point of view. Ideally, it would be nice to keep the culture in the culture, but we're not really in an ideal scenario.
Oh, let me answer your last question. You've been very intelligent. What about, what do you think that's going to take us to bridge that gap between black females and black males?
Right, like I say, better communication and more information, because a lot of the magazines that we do have out there, so-called black publications, aren't really doing much to help that scenario. I mean, they're giving some strong points of views and, how to find a love, stay in love, but they don't actually get to the core. They're more or less treating the symptoms of the bad relationships. They don't actually teach us, in order to find a good man, you have to be a good woman. Right. The expectations are quite high.
And that works both ways.
It works both ways, because you find a lot of people are punching above their weights. They're probably the beast, and they're still looking for beauty. You understand?
Yeah.
But their mindset is, my aspirations are such that I can achieve this type of thing without actually truly being ready to embrace that type of woman. You see what I mean? So the magazine should be more about focusing on building up yourself so that you become that virtuous man, that virtuous woman that's presentable and can achieve that kind of person that you're looking for.
Excellent. What's your name, bro?
Reg.
Reg.